The moment you think you can handle anything, life shows you exactly what you can't handle. That's what my grandfather used to say. And I should have listened. Love doesn't ask if you're ready. It just takes everything you've got and leaves you wondering who you used to be. At 67, I thought I knew myself. I thought I was wise enough, strong enough, experienced enough to navigate any situation life threw at me. I was wrong. Dead wrong. Sometimes the very thing that makes you feel most alive is the thing that destroys you completely. I thought I could handle a Thai ladyboy. I thought moving halfway across the world would make me young again. Instead, my retirement didn't just end. It shattered into pieces. I'm still trying to put back together. This is my story. This is my confession. This is what happens when desperation meets deception and wisdom gets buried under the weight of wanting to be wanted. If you like our stories of real people and real struggles, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps these honest stories coming. I was holding an umbrella over her when the rain started pouring down on Pattaya beach. Air pressed against my arm, her hair smelling like jasmine and cheap shampoo. "Daddy, we get so wet," she laughed, her English broken but sweet. I felt my chest tighten in a way it hadn't in years. At 67, I never expected to feel that rush again. The kind that makes your hands shake and your heart pound like you're 25. "Come on, let's run," I said, grabbing her hand. We sprinted toward the bar, laughing like teenagers. Her grip was small and warm in mine. When we reached the covered patio, she turned to me with those dark eyes and said, "You so strong, Daddy. You take care of me." I wanted to tell her I was just a worn-out truck driver from Ohio, that I'd never taken care of anyone properly in my life. Instead, I bought her another drink and watched her smile light up the whole damn place. "You different from other men?" she whispered, leaning close enough that I could feel her breath on my neck. "You make me feel safe." Safe. When was the last time anyone had said that to me? When was the last time I'd made anyone feel anything besides disappointed? The rain kept falling, drumming against the tin roof, and I thought maybe this was what I'd been searching for all along. Maybe this was why I'd come halfway around the world, to feel needed again, to matter to someone who called me Daddy and meant it. "I take you home," she said, her fingers tracing circles on my forearm. "I cook for you. I make you happy." I nodded, not trusting my voice. 40 years of marriage had ended with lawyers and silence. 20 years of truck stops and gas station coffee had left me hollow. But here was this beautiful girl, this woman, looking at me like I was worth something, like I was enough. The rain stopped as suddenly as it started, but we stayed under that patio for another hour, her head on my shoulder, planning tomorrow. I'd been in Thailand for 3 months before I met Air, and I was still running from the silence. Back in Ohio, my house echoed with 40 years of failure. Every room held memories of arguments that never got resolved, of a wife who stopped looking at me somewhere around year 15. "You're never here anyway," Margaret had said during the divorce proceedings. "Even when you're home, you're not really here." She wasn't wrong. 23 years of long-haul trucking had taught me how to disappear without leaving the room. But the silence that followed the divorce was different. It was the kind that screams at you when you're eating cereal at 2 in the afternoon, wondering what the hell you're supposed to do with the rest of your life. "Retire early," my buddy Dave had said. "Take that pension and go somewhere warm, somewhere you can start over." Thailand had seemed like a dream. The food, the smiles, the way the sun felt on skin, that had forgotten what warmth was like. I rented a small apartment near the beach, learned to say hello in Thai, and tried to convince myself that $50,000 in savings could buy me a new life. The first 2 months were lonely in a different way. Good lonely, the kind where you're healing instead of just existing. I ate street food and watched sunsets, and told myself I was content. Then one night at a beach bar, she danced over to me in tight jeans and a pink top that barely covered her shoulders. "You look lonely. Handsome," Air said, sliding into the chair next to mine. "You want company?" Her smile hit me harder than the whiskey I'd been nursing. Something about the way she looked at me, like I was interesting instead of just another old American with too much time and too little purpose. "I'm Ray," I said, extending my hand. "Air," she replied, her fingers soft against my palm. "Like the air we breathe. I make you feel alive again." I should have been suspicious. Should have recognized the practiced charm, the way she knew exactly what to say. Instead, all I could think about was how long it had been since someone had looked at me and seen possibility instead of disappointment. The pink toothbrush appeared in my bathroom on a Tuesday morning, sitting next to mine like it belonged there. I stared at it for a full minute, trying to remember when Air had brought it over. She was still sleeping in my bed, her black hair spread across the pillow I'd bought at a market in Bangkok. "Good morning, Daddy," she murmured when I brought her coffee. She stretched like a cat, all smooth limbs and satisfied smiles. "You sleep good?" I nodded, though I'd barely slept at all. Having someone in my bed again felt foreign, like wearing clothes that almost fit but not quite. She stayed that day, and the next, and by the end of the week, half my closet was filled with her dresses and jeans and tiny shoes that looked like they belonged to a child. "I cook for you tonight," Air announced, pulling ingredients from bags I didn't remember her buying. "Thai food. You like spicy?" She moved around my kitchen like she owned it, humming songs I didn't recognize. The way she chopped vegetables was mesmerizing, her hands quick and confident. When she finished, she brought me a plate of pad thai that was better than anything I'd had at a restaurant. "You learned to cook from your mother?" I asked. Air's face changed, just for a second. A shadow passed over her features before the smile returned. "My mother, she not good cook," she said, turning back to the stove. "I learn myself. I learn many things myself." There was something in her voice, something that made me want to ask more questions about her family, her life before me, the sadness that sometimes flickered behind her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. "Air," I started, but she was already moving toward me, wrapping her arms around my neck. "You want massage, Daddy. Your shoulders. They so tight." Her fingers found the knots in my muscles, and I forgot what I'd been about to ask. Later, she stroked my hair while I lay with my head in her lap, watching Thai soap operas I couldn't understand. "You happy, Daddy?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, and meant it. Even as part of me wondered why happiness had to feel so fragile, like something that might disappear if I held it too tightly. "Daddy, I need to ask you something." Air's voice was smaller than usual, almost childlike. We were sitting on my balcony, watching the street vendors pack up their carts for the night. She'd been quiet all evening, picking at her food and avoiding my eyes. I set down my beer and turned to face her. "What is it, sweetheart?" "My mama. She very sick," Air said, tears already forming in her eyes. "She needs surgery. For her heart, doctor say 30,000 baht, but I no have money." 30,000 baht. About $900. I had that much in my checking account. Money I'd been saving for a trip to the islands next month. "Air, I know is too much," she interrupted, standing up and walking to the railing. "I stupid to ask. You already do so much for me." The way she said it, like she was preparing for rejection, like she'd been disappointed before. I watched her shoulders shake and felt something twist in my chest. "Hey," I said, getting up and putting my arms around her from behind. "It's okay. Of course I'll help." She spun around in my arms, her face lighting up like I'd just offered her the world. "Really? You help my mama?" "Of course. Family is important." The transfer took 10 minutes at the internet cafe down the street. Air cried when I handed her the receipt, kissing my cheek over and over. "You so good man, Daddy. My mama. She love you already." 2 weeks later, it was a scooter. Her old one had broken down, and she needed transportation to her job at the hotel. Just help me this once, she said, using the same words, the same tone. Another 15,000 baht. A month after that, she needed money for a visa consultation. Her friend had told her about a program for working in Singapore. Better money, better life. But if you want me to go, she started, watching my face carefully. I stay here with you. I just thought, maybe I help you too. Make more money. Take care of you better. Each time, she asked like it was the last time. Each time, she cried when I hesitated and smiled when I gave in. Each time, I told myself I was helping someone I loved. But late at night when she was asleep, I stared at my bank balance and wondered when love had started feeling like a transaction. Air was gone when I woke up on Thursday morning. No note, no text message, just an empty bed and the lingering smell of her perfume on my pillow. We'd argued the night before about money again. She'd wanted to borrow 5,000 baht for her friend's birthday party, and for the first time, I'd said no. You think I just use you, she'd said, her voice rising in a way I'd never heard before. You think I only want your money? That's not what I said, Air. Is what you think. I can see in your eyes. She'd stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I'd figured she'd come back after she cooled down. That was our pattern. We'd fight. She'd disappear for a few hours, then return with apologies and kisses that made me forget why I'd been upset. But Thursday turned into Friday, and Friday into Saturday. No messages. No calls. My phone stayed silent except for spam texts from my phone company. I checked the hospital first, asking in broken Thai if they'd seen a young woman with long black hair. The nurses looked at me with pity and shook their heads. Then the police station, where a board officer took notes on a pad and told me to come back in a week if she didn't turn up. Many girls, they come and go, he said in English. Maybe she go back to family. I walked the beach where we'd met, scanning faces in the crowd. Every tall woman with dark hair made my heart jump until I got close enough to see it wasn't her. The bar where she'd first talked to me was full of tourists and working girls, but none of them knew Air, or they pretended not to. By Saturday night, I was calling hospitals in Bangkok, using Google Translate to explain who I was looking for. The woman on the phone at Bumrungrad Hospital sounded tired. Sir, we cannot give information about patients to non-family members. She's my girlfriend, I said, hating how desperate I sounded. Please, I just need to know if she's okay. The silence stretched between us before she hung up. Sunday evening, I was sitting on my balcony with a beer and a growing certainty that I'd never see her again, when I heard her key in the lock. Daddy? She called out, her voice small and uncertain. I found her in the doorway, holding a plastic bag from 7-Eleven and looking like she hadn't slept in days. Where were you? The words came out harsher than I'd intended. Air's eyes filled with tears. My friend, she very sick. I stay with her in hospital. I forget my phone charger. I cannot call you. She moved toward me slowly, like I might bolt. So sorry, Daddy. I know you worry. I wanted to ask which friend, which hospital, why she couldn't have borrowed someone's phone. Instead, I pulled her into my arms and felt her shake against my chest. I thought something had happened to you, I whispered into her hair. I thought I'd lost you. The next morning, I bought her a gold necklace from a shop near the beach. 25,000 baht, more than I'd ever spent on jewelry for my ex-wife. You never lose me, Daddy, Air said, fastening the chain around her neck. I always come back to you. I wasn't looking for it. I was trying to tag Air in a photo of us at dinner when Facebook suggested people you may know, and her face appeared twice. Same smile, same eyes, but a different name. Lila, not Air. The profile was public, and my hands were shaking as I scrolled through photos I'd never seen. Lila, kissing a young German man outside what looked like a hotel in Bangkok. The timestamp said it was from 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, when she'd told me she was visiting her sick aunt in Chiang Mai. Another photo showed her on a beach in Phuket with a group of Western men, all of them old enough to be her father, all of them looking at her the same way I did, like she was the best thing that had ever happened to them. The comments were in German and English and Thai, and I didn't need to translate them to understand what they meant. "Can't wait to see you in Berlin again, babe," one said. "Miss you already, princess," said another. There were dozens of them, dating back months, men from Australia, America, Germany, Sweden, all saying the same things I'd been saying, all calling her baby and princess and sweetheart. I sat in my living room for an hour, staring at the phone, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The heir I knew couldn't possibly have time for all these men. She was with me every day, cooking my meals, sleeping in my bed, asking about my life in Ohio like she actually cared. But the evidence was right there in front of me, tagged with locations and dates that didn't match the stories she'd told me. When she came home from her job at the hotel that evening, I was waiting on the couch with my phone in my hands. "Heir," I said, holding up the screen. "What is this?" Her face went white when she saw the profile. For a moment, she just stood there, frozen like an A-lyle caught in headlights. Then the tears started. "Daddy, I can explain. Your name isn't Heir." "It is. Lila is my Thai name, but everyone call me Heir. Is same person. And the men in these photos?" She sat down next to me, reaching for my hands, but I pulled away. "They just friends, Daddy. From before I meet you. I never see them again, I promise. This photo is from 2 weeks ago, Heir, when you said you were visiting your aunt." "Is old photo. Someone else posted. I don't know why it say 2 weeks. Her voice was getting higher, more desperate. "You don't understand, Daddy. Before I meet you, I have different life. But now, I only want you. Only you." I showed her the comments, the recent ones, the ones that talked about visits and plans and missing her. She had an explanation for each one, getting more elaborate as I scrolled. Old friends who were confused, ex-boyfriends who wouldn't leave her alone, computer errors, translation problems. "You think I lie to you?" she said finally when she ran out of excuses. "You think I bad girl. I don't know what to think anymore." She stood up suddenly, her face changing from sad to angry. "You know, trust me. You check my Facebook like I am criminal. This is not love, Daddy. This is jealous. Heir, please. Let's just talk about this." No more talk. She was moving toward the bedroom, pulling clothes out of drawers and stuffing them into the plastic bags she'd arrived with months ago. "If you know, trust me. I cannot stay. I find someone who love me for real." I followed her, trying to explain, trying to get her to slow down and talk it through. But she was already at the door, bags in hand, her face set in a way I'd never seen before. "Heir, don't go. Please." She paused at the door and looked back at me one last time. "My name is Lila," she said quietly. "And you never really know me at all." The door closed behind her with a soft click, and I was alone with my phone, and the truth I'd been too blind to see. The beer tasted like regret, and the sunset looked like an ending. I'd been sitting at the same beach bar where we met for 3 hours, nursing the same bottle and watching couples laugh at tables that suddenly seemed too big for one person. The bartender, a middle-aged Thai man who'd served us dozens of times, avoided my eyes. He knew. They all knew. I was just another old farang who'd fallen for the wrong girl and was too proud to admit it. "Rough night, mate." The voice belonged to an Australian man about my age, weathered skin and kind eyes. He gestured to the empty chair across from me. "Mind if I sit?" "Name's Barry." I nodded, grateful for any voice that wasn't the one in my head telling me what an idiot I'd been. Barry ordered 2 beers without asking if I wanted another. "Let me guess," he said after the bartender walked away. "Young Thai girl, called you something sweet. Made you feel like you were 20 again." I must have looked surprised because he laughed, not meanly, but with the kind of understanding that comes from experience. Been here 8 years, mate. Seen it all. Hell, lived most of it. She wasn't just any girl, I said, though even as the words came out, they sounded hollow. None of them are, Barry replied. That's what makes it hurt so much. They're not acting. Not really. They're just playing a different game than we are. He took a long drink and stared out at the water. My first year here, I fell for a girl named Ploy. Beautiful, sweet, made me feel like I was the only man in the world. Found out later she had 3 other boyfriends sending her money. Germans, Brits, another Aussie. We all thought we were special. How do you get over it? You don't, he said simply. You just learn to live with being stupid. And if you're smart, you learn to spot the signs next time. We sat in silence for a while, watching the waves crash against the sand. Other tourists walked by, couples mostly, holding hands and taking selfies. A few working girls moved between the bars, practicing their English on any foreign man who'd listen. The hard part, Barry continued, isn't that they lie. It's that part of it's always real. The smiles, the affection, the way they make you feel needed. That's real, even if the reasons are different than what you think. I thought about Air's laugh when we got caught in the rain. The way she curled up against me when we watched movies. The tears in her eyes when she talked about helping her mother. How much of it had been real? How much had been Air, and how much had been Lila? What do I do now? I asked. Barry finished his beer and stood up. You go home, mate. Have a good cry. Maybe punch a pillow. Tomorrow you decide if you're going to let this break you or teach you. He clapped me on the shoulder. And if you decide to stay in Thailand, find yourself a nice widow from Germany, someone your own age who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to ask for it directly. After he left, I walked the beach alone, past the spot where Air had called me Daddy in the rain, past the restaurant where she'd fed me pad thai with her fingers, past the hotel where she'd claimed to work, though now I wondered if that was another lie. The sand was cool under my feet, and the moon was full enough to light my way back to an apartment that would feel too quiet and too small. An apartment with a pink toothbrush I'd probably never have the heart to throw away. I'd been alone for 6 days when I heard her key in the lock again. 6 days of eating instant noodles and watching Thai soap operas I couldn't understand. 6 days of checking my phone every 10 minutes and finding nothing but spam calls from Ohio. I was lying on the couch in the same clothes I'd worn yesterday when the door opened and Air walked in like nothing had happened. "Hi, Daddy," she said softly, standing in the doorway like she wasn't sure if she was welcome. She looked smaller somehow, wearing jeans and a t-shirt I didn't recognize. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and without makeup, she looked younger, vulnerable. "I miss you so much," she continued when I didn't respond. "I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. I think maybe I make mistake." I sat up slowly, trying to read her face. The anger I'd felt for the past week was still there, but seeing her again brought back all the feelings I'd been trying to drink away. "Where have you been?" "I stay with friend, but is not same. I miss my home. I miss you." She took a step closer, her hands clasped in front of her like a child asking for forgiveness. "Can I come back, Daddy? I be better. I no lie anymore." I wanted to say yes immediately. Wanted to pull her into my arms and pretend the last week had been a bad dream. Instead, I stayed on the couch and watched her fidget with the hem of her shirt. "What about the Facebook profile? The other men?" "I delete everything," she said quickly. "No more Facebook, no more friends, only you, Daddy, I promise." She moved to the couch and sat next to me, close enough that I could smell her shampoo. "I know you hurt. I know I make mistake. But I love you. Real love, not fake." Her hand found mine, and I let her take it. Her fingers were cold, and I could feel them trembling. "I want to believe you," I said finally. "I want to believe you." She smiled then, the first real smile I'd seen since she walked in. "You can believe. I show you every day how much I love you." She leaned against my shoulder, and I felt my resolve cracking. "But first, I need ask you one thing. One last thing, I promise." My stomach dropped, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "What is it?" "My landlord. He say I need pay rent, or he kick me out. I have job interview next week. Good job at hotel in Bangkok. But I need place to stay until then." She looked up at me with those dark eyes that had gotten me into this mess in the first place. "Can you help me? Just help me this once, and I never ask again." I should have said no. Should have seen the pattern, the way she always came back when she needed something, the way her emergencies always required my money. But sitting there with her head on my shoulder, feeling needed again after a week of feeling worthless, I pulled out my wallet. How much? Only 15,000 baht for rent and deposit. I walked to the ATM on the corner while she waited in the apartment. The money felt heavier than it should have in my hands when I came back. Air cried when I gave it to her, real tears that left streaks on her cheeks. "You so good to me, Daddy. I never forget this." She kissed me then, soft and sweet, tasting like the mango smoothies she loved. "I come back tomorrow, okay? I pack my things and move back home with you." I nodded, watching her count the bills and fold them carefully into her purse. "I love you, Air." "I love you too, Daddy. More than anyone." She kissed me again at the door, lingering like she didn't want to leave. "Tomorrow we start new life, okay? No more lies, no more problems. Just you and me." I watched from my balcony as she got into a taxi, waving up at me until the car turned the corner. Tomorrow came and went. So did the day after that. And the day after that. Air never came back. 2 weeks later, I ran into her landlord at the market. He looked confused when I asked about her apartment. "She move out last month," he said in broken English. "She cancel lease. Take deposit back." Why? I should have been furious. Should have been cursing her name and planning revenge and telling everyone who'd listen what a lying, manipulative little thief she was. Instead, I just sat in my too quiet apartment, staring at the empty bathroom where her pink toothbrush used to be, feeling nothing at all. The anger had burned itself out somewhere between the third day of waiting for her to come back and the realization that she never would. What was left wasn't rage or even sadness. It was just a hollow space where something used to be, like a tooth that's been pulled and leaves your tongue probing the gap where it used to sit. I thought about calling her. I had her number memorized, had dialed it 100 times in my head. But what would I say? That I knew she'd lied about the rent money? That I'd figured out she was never coming back? That I'd been stupid enough to fall for the same trick twice? The truth was, I wasn't even sure it was a trick. Maybe she had meant to come back. Maybe she'd convinced herself that this time would be different, that she really could love an old American truck driver who reminded her of her grandfather. Maybe the job interview in Bangkok was real, and she was just waiting for the right moment to return. Or maybe I was still making excuses for her, still trying to find the good in someone who'd seen me coming from a mile away. I started packing on a Wednesday morning, not because I'd made a decision to leave, but because I was tired of looking at her things. The dresses she'd left behind, the cheap jewelry scattered on my dresser, the bottle of nail polish she'd spilled on the bathroom counter and never cleaned up. Each item was a small weight I didn't want to carry anymore. The process was mechanical. Fold, pack, stack. Throw away anything that reminded me of her smile, or her laugh, or the way she used to say my name like it meant something. I found her hair ties in my nightstand drawer and threw them in the trash. I found her earrings behind the bed and put them in a bag for the hotel lost and found. I found the receipt from the gold necklace I'd bought her after she disappeared for 2 days, and I held it for a long time before tearing it into pieces. My landlord was surprised when I told him I was leaving early. "You know, like Thailand?" he asked, counting out my deposit in wrinkled bills. "Thailand's fine," I said. "I just don't like who I became here." The last thing I did was walk to the beach one more time. Not to look for her, or to remember the good times, but to say goodbye to the man who'd stood in the rain holding an umbrella over a beautiful girl who called him Daddy. That man had been desperate and lonely and willing to believe any story that made him feel important. I wasn't angry at him anymore. I wasn't angry at Air anymore either. We'd both been playing roles in a story that was never going to have a happy ending. She'd needed money and security and a way out of whatever life she'd been living before me. I'd needed to feel wanted and useful and young again. For a few months, we'd given each other exactly what we needed. The fact that it wasn't real didn't make it worthless. The fact that it couldn't last didn't make it meaningless. It just made it over. The taxi to the airport cost 800 baht, and I watched Pattaya disappear through the rear window without feeling anything resembling regret. The beaches, the bars, the street vendors selling fake watches and real dreams, all of it faded into the humidity and exhaust fumes that had welcomed me 6 months ago. I'd left no forwarding address, no phone number, no way for anyone to find me, especially her. The plane ticket back to Ohio had cost most of what I had left in my savings account. I'd upgraded to business class, not because I could afford it, but because I figured I deserved one last comfortable ride before I had to figure out what the hell I was going to do with the rest of my life. The flight attendant was Thai, about Air's age, and she smiled when she brought me a whiskey that cost more than most people in that country made in a day. "First time in Thailand?" she asked in perfect English. "Last time," I replied, and she nodded like she'd heard that before. Somewhere over the Pacific, I pulled out a notebook I'd bought at the airport and started writing. Not to Air, not to anyone in particular, but to the man I'd been before I met her. The man who'd thought he could buy love with kindness and money and the promise of taking care of someone who'd never needed taking care of in the first place. "Don't mistake need for love again," I wrote. "Don't think that being wanted is the same as being valued. Don't assume that just because someone makes you feel good about yourself, they're good for you." The words came slowly at first, then faster, as I started to understand what I was really writing. Not an apology or an explanation, but a set of instructions for the future. Rules for a man who'd learned the difference between being lonely and being alone, between being generous and being used. "You're worth more than the price of feeling young," I continued. "You're worth more than the cost of someone else's smile. You're worth a love that doesn't come with a price tag attached." By the time we landed in Cleveland, I'd filled 8 pages with thoughts I'd never been able to say out loud. The customs officer stamped my passport without looking up, and I walked through the airport carrying everything I owned in 2 suitcases and a carry-on bag. Ohio felt cold after 6 months in Thailand, but it was a clean cold, the kind that woke you up instead of weighing you down. I took a bus to Columbus and checked into a motel that charged by the week. The room smelled like disinfectant and broken promises, but it was mine, and nobody was going to ask me for money or tell me they loved me while planning their exit strategy. I had enough saved up for maybe 2 months of cheap living. Time to figure out what came next. Maybe I'd drive truck again. Maybe I'd find something else. Maybe I'd finally learn to be okay with eating dinner alone and sleeping in the middle of the bed and not having anyone call me daddy like it was a prayer they'd learned by heart. The notebook sits on the nightstand next to my bed now, full of lessons I paid too much to learn. Sometimes I read it when I'm tempted to download a dating app or answer the emails from women in the Philippines who somehow got my address and want to be my friend. The words remind me that love isn't something you can buy, and loneliness isn't something you can cure by throwing money at it. Some nights I think about Air, Lila, whatever her real name was. I wonder if she's still in Thailand, still meeting old foreign men who think they can save her from a life she's not trying to escape. I wonder if she ever thinks about the truck driver from Ohio who held an umbrella over her in the rain and called it love. But mostly, I don't wonder about anything except what I'm going to have for breakfast and whether the weather's going to be good enough for a walk. Simple questions with simple answers, the kind that don't cost 15,000 baht or break your heart when you find out the truth. I'm 67 years old, and I'm learning to be alone without being lonely. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, and the most honest. And for the first time in years, that feels like enough.